She was abandoned at her bachelorette party, but her billionaire boss said, "I would never leave you." She was supposed to be celebrating the happiest night of her life. But just minutes after the party began, everything changed. Her smile faded, the music stopped feeling like music, and the people she trusted most? They started disappearing, one by one, until she was standing there, alone, abandoned. But right when she thought it couldn't get worse, someone stepped out of the shadows, someone she never expected. And with just a few words, he flipped her entire world upside down. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. The champagne flute trembled in her hand, catching the glitter of the fairy lights strung across the rooftop garden. Laughter echoed around her. Music thumped low in the background, and her name floated in the air like petals in spring. Cheers to Ava, the bride-to-be! The crowd of friends, co-workers, and half-acquaintances clinked glasses, some already tipsy, others live-streaming on their phones. Ava smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Something in her chest felt off, a quiet tug, like a thread unraveling at the seam of a dress. She wore a soft, champagne-colored gown, satin that danced with the breeze. Her hair fell in gentle waves around her shoulders, and her eyes, a light sea-glass green, shimmered under the garden lights. She looked like a woman on the cusp of a dream. But the dream was starting to feel hollow. Where was Ethan? Her fiancé had promised to stop by. "Just for a moment, babe. I can't not see you on your bachelorette night." That was 2 hours ago. Ava checked her phone again. No new messages. Across the rooftop, her friend Melanie approached with a slight wobble in her step and concern tightening her brows. "Still no sign of the groom?" she asked, slipping an arm around Ava's waist. Ava tried to laugh it off. "He probably got caught up. You know Ethan." Melanie hesitated. "Yeah, but he's not answering me either. And I just saw Jenna and Marcus leave together." They were whispering. "Something feels off." Ava's stomach clenched. Then her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. Don't call." That was it. 7 words. She didn't move, didn't breathe. The laughter around her dimmed to a low hum, like the sound inside a seashell, distant, warped, unreal. She blinked, reread it. No, this wasn't happening. Wasn't. Not tonight. Not like this. Melanie looked over her shoulder. "Ava, what is it?" Ava slowly turned the screen to her. Her hand was shaking now. Melanie's eyes widened. Oh my God. The music kept playing. A group of co-workers shouted shots near the bar. Nobody else knew yet. Ava stood in the middle of the rooftop garden, surrounded by people celebrating her. And yet, she had never felt so completely, violently alone. Tears welled in her eyes, but she fought them. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not yet. But the night didn't wait. Word spread like spilled wine. One by one, the guests found reasons to leave. Some said nothing at all. They just grabbed their bags and slipped away. Others whispered with pity. A few hugged her, with eyes full of sympathy and discomfort, as if her heartbreak might rub off on them. Even Melanie, sweet, loyal Melanie, was pulled away by her boyfriend who was just too drunk to stay. Ava was left standing by the fountain near the edge of the rooftop, heels in her hand, mascara threatening to run. The city stretched behind her in lights and movement, but the rooftop was quiet now, silent. She could hear her breath, her heartbeat, the soft rustle of her dress in the wind. And then, footsteps, confident, calm. She turned slowly, expecting a waiter. Or maybe a stranger, but it was him, Julian Maddox, her boss, CEO of Maddox & Rowe Global, billionaire, visionary. And until now, just a powerful man who passed her in hallways, nodded during meetings, and sometimes sent an unexpected, well-done email late at night. But tonight, under the lights, with his dark burgundy suit catching the silver glow, he looked like someone from another world. And his eyes, those deep blue eyes, weren't cold like usual. They were soft, focused on her. "Ava," he said, voice low but clear. "I heard." She didn't answer. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "I shouldn't have come uninvited, but when I found out, I had to make sure you weren't—" His gaze swept the empty rooftop. Alone. Ava looked away, ashamed. "It's pathetic, isn't it?" Everyone left. Even he didn't even tell me to my face. I gave him everything. I gave up so much. Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, not with pity, but certainty, "You deserved better. You still do." Ava swallowed hard. "Well, I'm glad someone thinks that." "I don't just think it," Julian said, stepping closer again. "I know it." She met his eyes finally, and in them she saw something she hadn't expected. Not sympathy, not condescension, loyalty. And then he said the words that would anchor her through the storm. "I would never leave you." For a second, the air around them changed. The city, the party, the heartbreak. It all fell quiet. Ava stared at him. "Why are you saying that?" He hesitated, his jaw clenched, then relaxed. "Because it's true." Before she could speak, before she could process what was happening, the rooftop door burst open behind them with a loud, jarring clang. "Ava!" someone shouted, breathless. It was Jenna, pale, eyes wide with panic. "You need to come downstairs now." Ava blinked, her chest tightening. "What? Why?" "There's a video," Jenna said, struggling to catch her breath. "Of Ethan. With someone else. It's going viral. Everyone's watching it." Ava froze. Her lips parted, but no words came. Julian stepped forward instinctively, just in time to catch her as her knees gave out. And just like that, the worst night of her life had only just begun. The hallway outside the rooftop pulsed with noise, not music, not laughter, but whispers, gasps, and the unmistakable sound of something spreading fast. Ava gripped the metal railing, her fingers cold against the steel. Julian stood beside her, silent but steady, his presence like a shield she hadn't asked for, but suddenly needed more than air. Jenna, flustered, unlocked her phone and handed it to Ava. "Don't press play if you don't want to see it, okay? But it's already on TikTok, Twitter, everywhere." Ava stared at the screen. The thumbnail alone punched the breath from her lungs. Ethan's face, unmistakably clear, laughing in some dimly lit room. He was shirtless, and the woman draped across his lap, her maid of honor, Tasha. The video began automatically, muted, but it didn't need sound. Ethan kissed her like it was natural. Familiar. The timestamp said it had been recorded tonight. Ava felt like the ground beneath her had tilted. Her ears rang. Her heart, what was left of it, pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. Julian took the phone from her hands gently and gave it back to Jenna without saying a word. Ava hadn't realized she was shaking until he reached down and clasped her hand in his. "I want to go," she said, barely above a whisper. Jenna nodded, eyes wet. "Do you want me to drive you?" "No," Julian cut in, calm but firm. "I'll take her." Ava didn't argue. She didn't have the strength. The elevator ride down felt like falling in slow motion. Ava stood beside Julian, her dress still glowing softly in the dim light. She stared at the closed doors, her face expressionless now, like the pain had numbed everything. No one said a word until they reached the lobby, and even there, people watched. 2 employees from her floor, the same ones who had posted dozens of Instagram stories about her bachelorette earlier, lowered their phones when they saw her. One whispered something. Julian's hand pressed lightly against the small of her back. Not possessive, just protective. Outside, his sleek black car was already waiting. The driver opened the door. Ava hesitated for a moment, the city lights dancing across her tear-streaked cheeks. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to end. She was supposed to be with Ethan, laughing. Drunk on champagne and future plans, not with her boss, not wrapped in silence and betrayal, but when Julian looked at her, not with pity but presence, she got in. And that small decision, made in the middle of the worst night of her life, would be the beginning of everything she never expected. The car drove through the quiet streets, past restaurants where people still toasted to birthdays, anniversaries, and dreams that hadn't shattered. Ava leaned her head back, eyes closed. Her hands clutched the delicate fabric of her dress, as if trying to hold something together. Julian glanced at her, his jaw tense. "You don't have to say anything," she murmured, eyes still closed. "I wasn't going to," he replied softly. "But I meant what I said up there." She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him. "Why did you come?" she asked. "You're my boss. You barely speak to me at the office. Why tonight?" Julian was quiet for a moment, his eyes fixed on the passing streets. "Because you didn't deserve to be alone," he said, "and because I know what it feels like when everyone leaves." He hesitated, then added, "Once someone at the company went through something similar. She left without a word. I still think about it sometimes." Ava glanced at him but didn't press. There was too much weight in the air already. Ava blinked. Something in his voice cracked, just slightly, but it was enough. He turned to face her. "The difference is, no one showed up for me. So I thought maybe I could be that person for someone else." She studied him now, not as her intimidating CEO, not as the man who commanded boardrooms and headlines, but as a man with shadows behind his eyes. "You've been through this?" she asked. Julian gave a faint nod. "Not this exactly, but yeah. I know the silence after betrayal, the ache of being replaced." Ava didn't respond. She didn't have to. The space between them shifted, not smaller, not romantic, not yet, but honest. They arrived at her apartment. Julian walked her to the door, hands in his pockets, unsure whether to say goodnight or offer to stay. He wasn't used to this. Vulnerability wasn't part of his world. Ava turned to him, her key halfway into the lock. "I know this doesn't mean anything to you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But thank you for not letting me fall alone tonight." Julian met her eyes. "It means more than you think." She hesitated. Would you mind coming in for a moment? Not for anything weird. Just, I don't want to be alone right now." He nodded once. Inside, her apartment was dim, soft, quiet. The kind of space that felt lived in, with small touches. Photos, throw blankets, a scented candle still unlit on the table. Julian sat on the edge of the couch while Ava slipped out of her heels and poured herself a glass of water. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she sat across from him, feet curled beneath her, dress still glowing faintly in the light. "I was going to marry him next weekend," she said. "I thought he was my forever." Julian leaned forward slightly. "He's not, and thank God for that." She smiled unexpectedly. "You don't even know me. I see more than you think." A beat of silence. Then Ava whispered, "What if I'm not strong enough for this?" "You are," he said simply. "You just don't see it yet." And as she looked at him, really looked, something unfamiliar and dangerous fluttered in her chest. Not love, not yet, but a question she hadn't dared ask until now. Why do his eyes feel safer than anything I've known? And just as the warmth of his words began to soothe the edges of her broken heart, her phone buzzed again. She picked it up hesitantly. Another message from Ethan. This time it read, "You don't know the whole story. I had no choice. Meet me." Her breath caught. Julian leaned forward. "What is it?" She looked up, torn between fury and confusion, and just like that, the ache inside her began to twist into something new, something dangerous, because what if this betrayal wasn't what it seemed? Ava stared at the screen. The message glowed back at her like a ghost. "You don't know the whole story. I had no choice. Meet me." She read it once, then again. Julian watched her closely from the other side of the living room, his elbows resting on his knees, his suit slightly rumpled now, tie loosened. "Is it Ethan?" She nodded slowly, still processing. "What does he want?" "He says, I don't know everything, that he had no choice." Her voice cracked around the last words. Julian leaned back, his eyes narrowing slightly. That's what cowards say when they want to rewrite the ending they created. Ava didn't respond. Her thoughts were racing, too fast to catch. Ethan, the video, Tasha. And now, this. Why would he reach out now? Was it guilt, damage control, or something deeper? Her heart didn't want to believe there was more to the story, but her mind, exhausted, vulnerable, hesitated. "What should I do?" she asked, surprising herself. Ava had never asked anyone for guidance like that, but with Julian, the question came out naturally, like she trusted him already. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That depends on what you still want from him." Ava swallowed. "Closure, I guess." Julian tilted his head. "Are you sure? Because closure isn't always clean. Sometimes it opens the wound wider." She looked down at her lap. I want to hear why. I want to know how someone who said he loved me, who made all those promises, could just destroy it like that. With her." Julian didn't press further. He simply said, "Then I'll go with you." Ava blinked. "What?" "If you decide to meet him, I'll come with you. I'll stay outside if you want, but you're not doing this alone." Her eyes welled again, not with grief this time, but something softer. "Thank you," she whispered. And in that moment, something shifted between them again, a silent thread connecting their broken edges. The next morning, Ava barely slept. She sat at the edge of her bed, watching the sun creep in through the curtains. The city was already awake, but her body felt stuck in the night before, trapped in memories she couldn't turn off. She texted Ethan back. "Where and when?" He replied instantly, like he'd been waiting. "Old Pier, 10 a.m. You'll understand everything." The Old Pier? That place used to be special. It was where Ethan had taken her for their first real date, where he'd kissed her for the first time under a sky full of stars. Returning there now felt almost cruel, but she had to go, even if it destroyed her all over again. Julian was already waiting downstairs when she stepped outside. Gone was the formal suit from the night before. Today he wore dark jeans, a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and aviators that made him look more like a movie star than a CEO. But his eyes, when he pulled off the glasses, were warm and grounded. "You don't have to say yes," he said. "Even now, I'll drive wherever you tell me." Ava nodded. "Let's go." The ride to the pier was mostly quiet, except for one moment when Julian reached into the center console and pulled out a folded square of paper. "I brought this," he said, handing it to her. Ava opened it slowly. It was a printed copy of her latest proposal at work, a major campaign she had created for a philanthropic branch of their company. Julian had written something at the bottom in pen. "You're not just good, you're brilliant, and I see it." Ava blinked fast, the emotion hitting her out of nowhere. "Why would you bring this?" "Because I figured you might need reminding today," he said, turning back to the road, "of who you are outside of him." They arrived at the pier just before 10. It looked almost exactly as it had years ago. Weathered boards, distant sound of gulls, the smell of salt in the breeze. Except now it felt haunted. Ethan was already there. He wore a plain hoodie, his hands shoved in the pockets. His face was pale, eyes tired, hair messy like he hadn't slept either. When he saw her, something in his posture softened. "Ava," he breathed. Stepping forward, Julian gave her a look, silent but steady. She nodded at him. "Wait here." Then she walked, barefoot now, across the boards toward the man she once thought would be her husband. "Talk," she said simply. Ethan looked at her with so much pain in his eyes, it was hard to believe he had ever laughed with another woman the way he did in that video. "I didn't plan for any of this," he began. "I swear, Tasha, it wasn't about love." Ava folded her arms. "Then, what was it about?" He hesitated. And then finally, like pulling out a splinter trick, he said, "I owed someone a lot of money. Tasha knew. She offered to fix it if I walked away from the wedding." Ava blinked. "What?" She said she'd cover my debt, said you didn't deserve to be dragged into my mess. I think she actually thought she was protecting you, in her own twisted way." Ava stared at him, stunned. "So you let her buy you, and then what? Sleep with her as part of the deal?" "It didn't start that way," Ethan said quickly. "But yeah, I let it happen. I thought I was sparing you. I thought walking away would be cleaner than dragging you into a life that was about to fall apart." She shook her head in disbelief. "And you thought humiliating me in front of everyone I know was cleaner." He looked away. "I was a coward. I still am. But I loved you, Ava, I did. And I hated myself for not being the man you thought I was." Ava's voice broke. "You weren't, not even close." And that's when she realized. The ache in her chest was different now. It wasn't longing anymore. It was release. "I came here for answers," she said softly. "Not to fix anything, and now I have them." She turned away. Ethan didn't follow. She walked back across the pier toward the car, toward Julian, toward something she didn't understand yet, but trusted more than what she was leaving behind. Julian opened the passenger door for her. "You okay?" She took a breath. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she said, "I think I will be." But just as they started to pull away, Ava's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Ethan. It was Tasha. One single line. "You shouldn't trust Julian. There are things you don't know." The car rolled down the coastal road. The ocean to one side, and silence thick between them. Ava stared at the message on her phone, heart beating faster with every second. "You shouldn't trust Julian. There are things you don't know." Tasha. She read it again, then again. It wasn't just the message. It was who had sent it, Tasha. The same woman who had betrayed her, slept with Ethan, and smiled in her face while helping plan her wedding. Julian, eyes on the road, noticed her shift in the seat. "Something wrong?" Ava hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the phone. She didn't want to say it. Not out loud. Not when she still felt his presence as a kind of safety. But the words came out anyway. "It's Tasha. She messaged me." Julian glanced at her briefly, his jaw tightening. "What did she say?" "She said I shouldn't trust you. That there are things I don't know." The car grew quiet. Julian didn't answer right away, which made her stomach turn even more. She didn't know what kind of reaction she expected. Anger? Denial? Laughter? But his silence was heavy. Ava looked at him carefully now, not as the man who had held her steady, but as someone who might still be hiding something. "Is she right?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Is there something I should know?" Julian pulled the car into a scenic overlook and parked. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of them, and for a moment he just stared at the waves. Then he spoke, slowly. "There's nothing between me and Tasha, if that's what she's trying to make you think." That's not what she said. "I know," he said, finally turning to her, "but I'm telling you the truth." Ava searched his eyes. "So, why would she say it? What does she know about you that I don't?" He took a long breath, then leaned back in his seat. "Before you joined the company, Tasha tried to get close to me, personally. She was ambitious, wanted more than promotions. I turned her down, politely but firmly. She didn't take it well." Ava raised an eyebrow. "And you never mentioned this because it was over. She transferred departments, no harm done. And I didn't want to drag anyone else into it, especially not you." Ava processed that, chewing the inside of her cheek. "She was one of my best friends," she said quietly. I trusted her with everything, and she was hiding that kind of thing the whole time. I don't know what she wants now, Julian said, but it's probably not the truth. People like Tasha don't just destroy one thing, they keep going. Ava turned her gaze back to the sea, the wind brushing her hair across her face. She wanted to believe him. She almost did. But once trust had been shattered in one part of your life, it didn't rebuild easily in others. Later that afternoon, back at her apartment, Ava couldn't sit still. She paced the living room in silence, Julian gone now after dropping her off with a reassuring, "Call me if you need anything." She didn't know what she needed. But she knew what she wanted. Answers. So she did something she hadn't planned on. She called Tasha. It rang once, twice. Then the voice she hadn't heard since the betrayal answered, far too calm for someone who had detonated her life. "Well," Tasha said, "that was faster than I thought." "Cut the games," Ava snapped. "What do you know about Julian?" Tasha laughed, that same smug, syrupy sound that used to sound like friendship. "You really want to know? Tell me. You think you're special to him? That you're the first broken woman he's played hero for?" Her tone sharpened like a knife. "You're not." Ava's throat tightened. "What are you talking about?" "He's done this before," Tasha said. "Different girl, same story. A messy heartbreak, a ruined engagement, some convenient support from the generous boss. And then, just like that, she was gone." Ava's skin chilled. "Gone?" "She quit. Moved cities, no warning. It's like she disappeared off the face of the earth." "What was her name?" "You really think he's going to tell you that?" Silence. Tasha continued, her voice lower now. "Look, Ava, I'm not saying this to help you. You hate me, I get it. But just ask yourself why a man like that shows up at your worst moment. Why he's so ready to rescue you. Does he feel guilty? Or does he enjoy it?" Ava hung up without saying goodbye. She sat on the edge of her bed, heart pounding. She didn't know what to believe. The next morning she woke up early. Something in her wouldn't rest until she got clarity. She arrived at the office building before it even opened, swiping in with her security badge. The halls were empty, the lights dim. She went straight to HR. Melissa, the older woman who handled internal files, was just setting down her coffee when Ava knocked lightly on her office door. "Ava?" She blinked. "You're here early. I need a favor, quietly." Melissa's brows lifted, but she nodded. "Okay. I need to know who worked here in the creative team about a year and a half ago. Specifically women. Anyone who left suddenly." Melissa leaned back, curious now. "Looking for someone in particular? No name, just anything strange." Melissa typed something into her system. After a moment, she frowned. "There's one, Jessica Lynn. Great designer, smart, quiet. She was here about a year." Then submitted a one-line resignation email out of nowhere. No exit interview, no reason listed. Ava's pulse quickened. "Do you know where she went?" "No forwarding address, no new job listed, just gone." Ava thanked her and walked away, the name echoing in her mind. Jessica Lynn. She opened her phone and started searching. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, nothing. It was like she'd vanished. Her heart raced as a thought crept in like a shadow. What if Tasha was right? That night, Julian called. "Hey," he said. "Just checking on you. How are you holding up?" Ava stood by the window, watching the city breathe under the stars. She didn't answer right away. "I have a question," she said, "and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course." "Who is Jessica Lynn?" There was a pause, small but loud. Then Julian said, carefully, "Where did you hear that name?" Ava closed her eyes, because that one sentence told her everything she didn't want to hear. "Artide." Silence. Ava held the phone tight against her ear, as if gripping it hard enough could hold back what she already knew. Julian exhaled on the other end of the line. "Where did you hear that name?" he repeated, softer this time. Does it matter? Ava's voice was cool. You knew her, didn't you? Another pause. Yes, Julian finally said. I knew her. Ava closed her eyes. Part of her wanted to hang up. The other part needed to hear every word. Jessica worked under me, Julian continued. She was talented, quiet, kind, and, yeah, she was going through something when we met. A messy breakup, family pressure. I stepped in, tried to help. Ava sat on the edge of her bed, her heart pressing against her ribs like it wanted out. Tried to help, she repeated, almost bitterly. Is that what this is for you? A project? Julian didn't respond right away. Is that what you think you are to me? He asked, voice low but steady. I don't know what to think anymore. I crossed lines I shouldn't have with Jessica, Julian admitted. We got too close, but when it ended, she made her own choice to leave. I didn't push her out. I didn't make her disappear. Why did it end? Ava asked. Because she wanted something I couldn't give. And I realized it wasn't love. Not really. It was two broken people trying to fix each other. Ava bit the inside of her cheek. She was angry, but she also understood that kind of desperation, that need to feel seen. And what about now? She asked. What am I? Julian was quiet for a beat too long. You're not her, Ava. This is different. I didn't look at Jessica the way I look at you. Ava's breath caught. He wasn't saying it as a flirtation, not as a line. He meant it. But before she could respond, Julian's voice came again, slightly firmer. If you don't believe me, I get it, but I'm not lying to you. Not now. She turned toward the window, the city lights glowing like small hopes in the dark. Okay, she said quietly. But if there's anything else I need to know, or anything, you need to tell me now. Julian hesitated. Then, there's more, but not over the phone. They met the following night at a small cafe tucked between old bookshops and flower stalls. It wasn't the kind of place anyone would expect to find a billionaire CEO or a heartbroken almost bride. That's why she chose it. Ava arrived first, wearing a soft blue sweater and jeans, no makeup, no pretenses. She was tired of masks. Julian arrived a few minutes later, dressed down too. Dark shirt, sleeves rolled up, his usual polish traded for something more human, more real. He sat across from her, the warm scent of coffee filling the space between them. Thanks for meeting me, he said. Don't thank me yet, she replied. Start talking. Julian nodded. He didn't look away from her, not once. About a year ago, he began, I lost someone. Not Jessica. Someone much closer. Ava frowned slightly. Who? My sister, Claire. She died in a car accident. The words hit Ava like a quiet storm. I was supposed to pick her up that night, Julian continued, but I got caught in a meeting. She called me twice. I didn't answer. I thought it could wait. Ava's breath caught. She died alone, he said. And I never forgave myself. Silence filled the space between them, not awkward, just heavy. After that, he went on, I started noticing people in pain, people like Jessica and you. I thought maybe if I could help someone else, maybe I wouldn't feel so useless. Ava's voice came out low. So you're trying to make up for something you couldn't fix? Yes, Julian said simply. But this with you, it's not about guilt anymore. It's not about saving anyone. She looked up slowly, her eyes meeting his. And what is it? Julian leaned forward slightly. It's about you, not who you were with Ethan, not who you are at work, just you. Ava didn't speak right away. Her mind was spinning, so many truths, so many pieces she hadn't seen before. Julian let the silence linger. He didn't push. Then finally, Ava whispered, I don't know if I trust you yet. I don't expect you to, he said. I just want to deserve it. She looked away, her heart aching in new, unexpected ways, not from betrayal, but from the terrifying possibility that someone actually saw her, not as a project, not as a tragedy, but as a person. As they left the cafe, Ava walked ahead a few steps, needing air. She stood by the sidewalk, staring at the city like it might answer something for her. Behind her, Julian stepped closer. "I know I should have told you sooner," he said. "About Jessica, about everything. But I didn't want you to think this was another broken pattern." She turned to face him. "And is it?" "No," he said, "but I won't try to convince you of that. I'll show you, however long it takes." And then, before she could stop herself, before she could think, Ava did something she hadn't planned. She reached for his hand, not tightly, just enough to feel that he was there. And for the first time in days, she didn't feel like she was falling, but the peace wouldn't last. Because just 2 blocks away, parked in a car with tinted windows, someone was watching them, taking pictures. A message was sent. "Got the shot. She's with him now. I told you she'd run to him." And the reply came just as fast. "Good. Now we finish what we started." The next morning, Ava woke up to sunlight on her face, the kind of golden glow that normally promised a good day. But not today. Her phone buzzed before she even left the bed. A message from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. She blinked, sitting up slowly as it loaded. It was her. Her and Julian standing outside the cafe from last night. The angle was sharp, zoomed in. Her hand was in his body leaned slightly toward hers. The image was intimate, too intimate. A chill slid down her spine. She stared at the screen for several long seconds before typing one word. "Who is this?" No response. She called Julian. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy. "Ava?" "Someone's watching us," she said flatly. "They took a photo last night. Of us. Together." Julian was instantly awake. "What? Who?" "I don't know. The number's blocked. Send it to me." She did, and as she waited, heart racing, Julian went silent on the other end. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, sharper. "This wasn't random," he said. "Someone's following you." "No," she said slowly, her voice catching. "They're following you." An hour later, they met at Julian's apartment, a sleek, modern high-rise with tall glass windows and cold marble floors. But today, it felt less like luxury and more like lockdown. Julian had already called in a private security contact, a woman named Lila, ex-intelligence, calm and no-nonsense, arrived 20 minutes later. She took one look at the photo and sighed. Professional, probably with a long lens, likely a private investigator or someone pretending to be one. "For who?" Ava asked. Julian looked grim. "Let's list the candidates. Ethan, Tasha, or someone else entirely." Lila's eyes narrowed. "Or someone from your past, Julian. These types of operations don't usually come out of nowhere." Ava glanced at him. "Is there someone else?" Julian hesitated. "Not like that." But the pause was too long to ignore. Lila stood. "I'll sweep the building. You two, don't go anywhere until I say it's clear." She disappeared down the hallway. Ava turned to Julian. "Please don't keep me in the dark again," she said. Julian ran a hand through his hair. "I'm not, I swear. But someone's trying to push a narrative, Ava, that you and I are something dangerous, something planned." Her heart twisted. "Why would they do that?" "Because power attracts enemies. And the second they think I have a weakness, they aim for it." Ava frowned. "Am I your weakness?" Julian looked at her, really looked at her. "No," he said. "You're the first thing that's made me feel stronger in a long time." She swallowed hard, emotion rising again. But before she could speak, her phone lit up once more. This time, it was from Ethan. "Call me, it's important." Ava stepped out onto the balcony to call him, not wanting Julian to hear. Ethan answered instantly. His voice was hoarse. "Ava, I know you don't trust me, but you need to hear this." "I'm listening," she said, her tone flat. "Julian, he's not what he seems. Tasha's not lying. He's covering things up." Ava almost laughed. "You cheated on me with my best friend. Why would I believe you now?" Because I've been digging, Ethan said, and I found something. A pause. Then, there was a settlement. Jessica Lynn, a non-disclosure agreement, confidential payout. She didn't just quit, Ava. She was paid to disappear. Ava's blood ran cold. That's not true. Check the public records, Ethan said, or don't. Keep believing him. But remember, this man didn't just walk into your life. He chose you, right when you were weakest. Ava hung up. She stood there for a long time. The wind tugging at her sleeves, her thoughts spiraling. Could Julian have lied again? And if he had, why did she still want to believe him? Later that night, she did something she had sworn not to do. She searched public legal records, and there it was, a sealed case. 1 year ago, no names listed. But the legal team? Maddox and Rowe Global? Her hands trembled. The amount paid? $750,000. Ava stood in the dark of her kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound. As her mind cracked open, she had wanted so badly to believe Julian was different, that the past was behind him, but maybe the past never really stayed buried. Maybe people like Julian didn't rescue women like her. Maybe they collected them. She didn't call him. Not that night. She didn't respond to his texts. Not the next day either. But Julian didn't come to her door, didn't push. And that somehow hurt more. 3 days passed. Then, on the 4th, she returned home from the grocery store to find an envelope slid under her door. No name, no return address. Inside, photos, dozens of them. Her, Julian, Ethan, her walking into work, her on the rooftop, her hugging Julian in the cafe. Someone had been watching her for weeks. There was a note attached, one line, written in red ink. You're not safe with him. You never were. Ava's knees buckled. She dropped the envelope. Everything spilled onto the floor like pieces of a truth she hadn't wanted to see. Outside, across the street, a man stood leaning against a car, phone in hand, watching her window, waiting. Ava didn't move. She stood frozen in the middle of her apartment, surrounded by the scattered photos that had just fallen from the envelope. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps. She walked slowly to the window and peeked through the curtain. He was still there, leaning against a black car, hoodie pulled low. A phone in one hand, not even pretending not to stare at her building. She backed away, hands trembling. Her instinct screamed, "Call someone!" But who? Not Julian. Not after what she'd read. Not after the photos. Not after that number, $750,000, kept echoing in her head like a warning bell. And not Ethan. That door was shut, burned, buried. Ava grabbed her phone anyway and dialed the only person who made sense in that moment. Melanie. Her voice cracked as soon as her friend picked up. "Mel's, I need you to come over, please. Something's wrong." Melanie didn't ask questions. "I'm on my way." 20 minutes later, Melanie burst through the door and froze when she saw the mess on the floor. Whoa. Ava dropped to her knees, trying to gather the photos. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "He's watching me. He was outside." Melanie went straight to the window and looked, pulling the curtain just an inch. Still there. Ava bit her lip, trying not to fall apart. "I don't know what to do." "Okay," Melanie said, kneeling beside her. "You're going to breathe first of all. Then we're going to figure this out. Together." Ava clutched the envelope. There was a note. It said, "I'm not safe with him." Melanie's eyes narrowed. "Julian," Ava nodded. "Oh, but how do I know if that's true? Or just someone trying to scare me?" Melanie picked up one of the photos. It was from the rooftop. From that night. The night everything shattered. "This wasn't taken with a phone," she said. "That's pro camera quality. Someone's been following you for weeks, Ava." "I feel like I'm drowning," Ava whispered. "Like I don't know what's real anymore?" Melanie looked at her. "Then start with what you know. What's true for you?" Ava blinked. "I know I was abandoned. I know Ethan betrayed me. I know Tasha lied. I know Julian helped me when I had no one else. But there are pieces missing, and I'm scared of finding them. Melanie paused. Maybe it's time to stop letting them control the story. That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She lay awake in the dark, the photos stacked on the nightstand like ghosts watching her. At 2:13 a.m., she got up, grabbed her phone, and finally texted Julian. "We need to talk, tomorrow, in person, just us." He replied within seconds. "Name the time and place. I'll be there." They met the next afternoon at a quiet park on the outskirts of the city, far from cameras, far from glass buildings and eyes behind tinted windows. Ava sat on a bench under a tree, arms folded, her face unreadable. Julian arrived exactly on time. He looked more tired than she'd ever seen him, but he didn't speak first. He waited. Ava reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. She handed it to him without a word. He opened it slowly, his brows drawing together with every photo he saw. When he reached the note, he froze, his jaw clenched. "I didn't send this," he said. "I know," Ava replied quietly. "But you do recognize this, don't you?" He looked at her. "Yes." "Who is it?" she asked. "Who's watching me?" Julian hesitated. Then he said carefully, "There's a man. His name is Ren Marlowe. He used to be part of my security team." "Years ago, but he was let go, and he didn't take it well." "Why?" Julian's voice was low. "Because I found out he was using company resources to dig into people's private lives, tracking women, recording conversations. I reported him, fired him. He threatened to expose me, saying I'd stolen someone he wanted." Ava felt the chill in her bones spread. "Someone like Jessica?" Julian nodded slowly. "He was obsessed with her," he said. "I didn't see it at first, but when she left, he blamed me, said I drove her away, that she was supposed to choose him." Ava's throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I didn't think he'd come back. And because I didn't want you to see me as part of something dark." Ava stared at him. "I already do." Julian's eyes flickered, and for the first time, he looked hurt. "Everything I told you was real," he said. "I never lied about what you meant to me." "But you left out the parts that mattered," she replied. "And now someone is threatening me because of your past." Julian stepped forward. "Then let me fix it." "You can't fix me," Ava said, "and you can't keep saving people who are already bleeding. We have to stop pretending this is something perfect." Silence stretched between them like a wound. Julian finally spoke. "Then what do you want from me?" Ava looked him in the eye. "The truth, all of it. No more secrets, no more stories, just the whole ugly truth, or I walk away for good." Julian nodded. "Okay," he said. "Then meet me tomorrow night, at my house. No cameras, no one else. And I'll tell you everything. From the beginning." Ava turned to leave, but before she could take more than a step, Julian's voice stopped her. "Ava," she looked over her shoulder, "if I lose you after this, just know I never wanted to hurt you. You were the first person who made me want to be better." She didn't answer. She just walked away. But her heart wasn't steady anymore. It was breaking all over again. Across town, Ren Marlowe sat in a room filled with monitors, one screen playing the park footage in black and white. He smiled to himself and whispered, "It's all falling into place." It was just after 9 p.m. when Ava stood in front of Julian's house. She stared at the heavy wooden door, hand hovering over the brass knocker, heart pounding louder than the crickets in the night air. It was beautiful here, quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that felt both peaceful and dangerous. She finally knocked. Julian opened the door almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting just behind it. He didn't smile, he didn't speak. He simply stepped aside and let her in. The inside of his home was warm, clean, but lived in. Bookshelves lined the walls, soft lighting filled the rooms, and a single photo frame sat on the hallway table, a picture of him and a young woman, his sister, Claire. Ava paused in front of it. "She looks like you," she said. Julian came up beside her. She was louder and kinder. They stood in silence for a moment until Ava turned to face him. "You said tonight you'd tell me everything. No lies. No pieces left out." He nodded. "We'll talk in the study." She followed him through the house into a room with large windows and a fireplace. He poured them both a drink, water for her, whiskey for himself, and sat opposite her. Then he began. "I was raised with money," he said, "but not love. My parents were distant, the kind of people who cared more about reputation than people. Claire was the only one who made the house feel alive." He took a sip. Eyes fixed on the glass. "When she died, something broke, and I didn't know how to fix it. I buried myself in work, control, efficiency, success, and people started calling me brilliant, visionary. But all I was doing was hiding." Ava listened silently. Jessica came during that time. She was like a mirror I wasn't ready to face. Kind, gentle, and hurting. Just like me, we got close too fast. I blurred lines I shouldn't have. We never slept together, but the emotional connection, it crossed boundaries. When she wanted more, I pulled away, and that shattered her. He paused. "She didn't just leave, Ava. She filed a complaint. Said she felt manipulated, trapped, that I'd used my position to confuse her." Ava's fingers tightened around her glass. "I didn't fight the settlement," Julian said. "Not because I was guilty in the way they said, but because I wasn't innocent either. I should have seen the imbalance. I should have been better." Ava's throat tightened. "So you paid to keep it quiet?" "I paid so she could start over," he said. "So I could, but I never forgot her, or what I did wrong." He leaned forward now, eyes locked on hers. "And then you came, not looking for help, not needing to be saved, just surviving. You didn't ask for me, you didn't expect anything. But I saw the same brokenness, and I made a choice, not to repeat the past, not to control, but to be honest. For once." Ava was quiet. Her chest rose and fell slowly. "I never touched you out of guilt," Julian added. "I never said those things to feel powerful. You made me want to be better. You still do." She blinked, emotion rushing behind her eyes. "But why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered. "Because I didn't want to lose you before I had a chance to prove I'd changed." A long silence fell between them. Then Ava spoke. "Jessica, where is she now?" "I don't know," he said. "She disappeared. No social media. Oh, no contact. I sometimes wonder if she ever found peace." Ava stood and walked to the window. "I feel like I'm caught in someone else's unfinished story," she said softly. "Like none of this started with me, but somehow it's going to end with me." Julian stood too. "That's not true." She turned to him. "Someone is watching me, threatening me, sending photos, following me. If this isn't about Jessica, then who is it about?" Julian exhaled. "Ren. He wants to punish me for everything he thinks I stole. I didn't realize he was capable of this, but it's him. I'm sure of it." "And if he tries to hurt me?" Ava asked. Julian didn't hesitate. "He'll have to go through me." Ava looked at him, not just the man who once rescued her, but the man standing on the edge of redemption, fighting to prove he was worth the second chance. And for the first time in days, she let herself believe he might be telling the truth. Later that night, Ava stayed, not because she was afraid, but because part of her wanted to know how it felt to sleep in a place that wasn't haunted by betrayal. She curled up on Julian's couch, wrapped in a soft throw blanket, while he sat nearby in the armchair, both of them surrounded by quiet. "Do you ever miss her?" Ava asked, eyes half closed. "Claire?" "Every day," he said. "But sometimes I think, if she were still here, I wouldn't have met you." Ava didn't answer. For a long moment they just breathed, not speaking, not moving. Then Ava reached out, her hand finding his. He didn't pull away. And for a heartbeat the silence changed. She leaned forward, slowly, uncertainly. Julian met her halfway. The kiss was soft, brief, but real. Not a promise, just a moment of truth. Ava leaned back, her eyes fluttering shut. Her breathing slowed, and Julian stayed awake long after she fell asleep, watching the shadows shift, wondering how long they had before the next wave came crashing. A few miles away, in a dark room lit only by blue monitors, Ren Marlowe watched Ava sleeping through a live security feed. He zoomed in slowly, her face soft with sleep, unaware of the camera hidden inside the clock on the shelf. He smiled and whispered, "Now you're exactly where I want you." The first sound Ava heard was a soft click, not loud, not sharp, just a click, like a lock shifting or a door closing gently in another room. She sat up slowly on the couch, heart suddenly alert. The living room was quiet, too quiet. The dim light from the hallway spilled in across the floor. Julian wasn't in the armchair anymore. Her eyes scanned the space. No sign of him. No sound from the kitchen. No footsteps. Just that strange sensation, the one that prickled at her neck, that something was off. Then she noticed the clock on the shelf. A small, simple thing, but there was something odd about it. It had a tiny light, not the usual green glow of a digital clock, a pinprick red light. It wasn't a clock at all. It was a camera. Ava's breath hitched. She stood slowly and walked over to it. As she reached out, her fingers trembling, the small red light blinked once, as if it knew she was watching back. She yanked it from the shelf, turned it over, a hidden lens. And just beneath it, taped to the bottom, a tiny sticker with letters she didn't recognize. But the model, it matched the exact type of surveillance Julian's security contact Lila had mentioned just days ago. Her heart thudded. She backed away from the shelf, spinning around to scan the room, the bookshelf, the corners, the lamp, the vent. Had she been watched inside his house? She stumbled toward the hallway. "Julian?" No answer. She moved faster now, past the kitchen and down the short hall toward the back rooms. "Julian?" Still silence. Until, "Ava!" His voice came sharp and panicked from somewhere deeper inside the house. She sprinted toward it. She found him in his office, the door halfway open, papers scattered across the desk. He was holding his phone, staring at the screen in disbelief. "What happened?" she gasped. Julian looked up. His face was pale. He turned the phone toward her. It was a live stream, a video of her, lying asleep on the couch not 20 minutes ago, from the exact angle of the clock camera. And above the feed, in bold letters, "She trusts him. She doesn't know, but she will." Ava stared, numb. "Julian, someone's inside your house." He dropped the phone. "Where's your bag?" "What? Your purse? Where is it? Your phone?" Ava ran back to the living room. Her bag was still there, resting on the coffee table. She dug through it, frantic, until she found her phone. The screen was unlocked. The flashlight was on, and a text draft was open, one she didn't write. "He's dangerous. I know everything. I'm coming for him." She froze. "I didn't type this," she whispered. Julian grabbed the phone from her hand, scanning the screen. His jaw tightened. "It's Ren. He's not just watching. He's inside your phone." "Remote access? Probably piggybacked on an old company app or Wi-Fi connection." Ava stared in disbelief. "He hacked me." "He's building a case," Julian said, his voice cold. "And he wants to make it look like you're the threat." Julian picked it up, eyes scanning the screen. "They want it to look like you're threatening me." "They're building a case." "For what?" Ava cried. "Why?" Julian's eyes were wild. "Because if something happens to me, it'll look like it was you." He stopped. His jaw clenched, eyes narrowing like something had just clicked. "It's Ren," he muttered. "He used to manage my original home security system, years ago." Before I knew what he was capable of, Ava's eyes widened. "Wait, you think he still had access?" Julian nodded grimly. "He helped install everything. If he left a back door into the system, he could have been watching this place for months, maybe even longer." Ava's voice cracked. But Lila didn't find anything. Because she was scanning for active threats, he said. Breath short. Not old vulnerabilities buried deep in the code. A chill ran through her. Then he's been ahead of us this whole time. The front door suddenly creaked. Both of them froze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Ava grabbed Julian's hand. Do you have security here? Yes, but if Wren's gotten inside, it means he's disabled the system. He knows how it works. He designed it. They moved toward the back of the house. Julian grabbed a drawer, pulled out a small pistol, his face apologetic but steady. I don't want this, he said, but if it's him, we can't take chances. They slipped out the side door, barely making it into the garden before the hallway light behind them flicked on. He was inside. Ava's mind raced. She remembered the note, the photos, the voice on the phone. Everything was leading here, not just to threaten her, to destroy her. They got into Julian's car, peeled off down the street, tires screeching into the night. Ava clutched her phone in both hands, scrolling through messages, pictures, notes, anything she could use to trace where Wren had started. I think I know where he is, she said suddenly. There was a reflection in one of the photos, a neon sign, Silver Point Storage. It's not far from here. East Side Industrial District. Julian looked over. You're sure? No, she said, but we don't have time to be sure. They arrived at the storage facility 20 minutes later. Dark, deserted, only one unit had lights on inside, barely visible through the cracks in the roll-up door. They parked in the shadows. I'm going in, Julian said. No, Ava said, grabbing his arm. If this ends tonight, it ends with both of us knowing the truth. I'm not hiding anymore. He hesitated, then nodded. They entered quietly, hearts pounding, breath shallow. The door to Unit 37 was open just an inch. Julian reached out and pushed it gently. The metal creaked upward with a groan. Inside, it wasn't a storage unit at all. It was a control room. Screens lined the back wall, all of them filled with images of Ava. Work, home, rooftop, even moments alone in her apartment she'd thought were private. And in the center of the room, Jessica Lynn. Alive, standing, eyes locked on Ava. Ava froze. She hadn't expected this. Jessica Lynn. Not a ghost, not a memory, not a name, whispered in legal files or through rumors. She was real, standing in the center of a surveillance room filled with images of Ava's life, smiling, crying, changing clothes, walking alone. Private moments that weren't private at all. Jessica's eyes were sharp, not broken, not scared, just calm, controlled. Hello, Ava, she said, like it was a meeting long overdue. Julian stepped protectively in front of Ava. Jessica, what is this? What are you doing? Jessica tilted her head, almost curious. Why do you think I disappeared, Julian? Why do you think I let you believe I was just some heartbroken assistant who needed space? You filed a complaint, Julian said, voice cracking. You took the settlement. You left. I took the silence, Jessica said. Why? Because you offered it. Because it was easier to vanish than to confront you. But you never asked why I really left. Ava's voice shook. What does this have to do with me? Jessica looked at her now. You're the first one he truly cared about, she said. And that made you dangerous, Ava stepped forward. To who? A voice echoed from the shadows. To me, came the answer. From behind one of the monitors stepped Wren Marlowe, tall, cold, smiling. Ava took an instinctive step back. You were never supposed to get this far, he said, staring straight at her. But you did. And now you know the truth. Julian stood between them. She knows your truth. Knows. You were the one who stalked her, planted cameras, twisted everything. Did I? Wren asked, stepping forward slowly. Or did I just finish what you started, Julian? Jessica's eyes never left Ava. You don't understand, she said. Wren and I... You were together, Ava said. The words tasted bitter. This whole time? Jessica nodded once. We met while I was still working under Julian. At first, I thought Ren was just a tech guy. Quiet, reliable. But he saw me. And when Julian didn't return what I felt, Ren offered something else. Revenge? She paused. Her voice faltered, softening. At first, I told myself we were doing the right thing, that we were exposing a pattern, protecting others. But the truth is, she looked at Ava, and for the first time her eyes were filled with something closer to regret than hatred. I didn't want justice. I wanted him to hurt. I wanted him to feel powerless the way I did. And when I saw how he looked at you, I knew how to break him. Julian's jaw clenched. You said I manipulated you. You did, Jessica snapped, but not the way people think. You were kind, caring. But it was never real, not for me. You used compassion as control. You wanted to save me, not love me. Ava stepped in now. So, you targeted me to what? Punish him? Ren's voice cut in. You weren't the target, you were the proof. That he'd never change. That Julian Maddox will always find broken women and play God. Julian's fists were tight now. This isn't about me. It's about what you did to her. He turned to Ava. I swear to you, I didn't know. I didn't know Jessica was with him. I didn't know any of this was happening behind the curtain, Ren smirked. Of course you didn't. You never see the real consequences of what you do. You move on, you build your empire, you wipe your hands clean. Ava's voice rose. So you filmed me, followed me, threatened me, for what? Some kind of moral justice? Ren's calm cracked for the first time. I loved Jessica, and you were taking him away from her, from me. Jessica looked down, suddenly less sure. Ren, but he snapped. No, she deserves to know. She deserves to see what kind of man Julian really is. And if I have to ruin both of them to prove it, then so be it. Julian stepped forward. You're sick. You need help. I needed her, and you stole her, Ava shouted, her voice breaking. Stop! Everyone froze. She looked at each of them, breathing hard. I've been manipulated, lied to, betrayed. I've spent weeks feeling like a pawn in someone else's game, but not anymore. She turned to Jessica. You had every right to be angry, but you lost me the second you became him, hiding in the dark, taking control. Then to Ren. You think you're the only one who's been hurt by Julian? You think your obsession justifies what you did to me? You don't love her. You possess her. Jessica's eyes welled for the first time. Ava turned to Julian last. You've made mistakes, deep ones. But the only reason I'm still here, still standing, is because you never treated me like someone you needed to fix. Julian's voice was quiet. I didn't know how to love without guilt. Until you. A long, tense silence followed. Then, sirens. Ava turned sharply. Did you call someone? Julian gave a small nod. Lila's been tracking Ren ever since you found the photos. She's outside. Jessica looked at Ren, panic rising. You said no one knew. But he was frozen, caught. The flashing lights reflected in the metal shelves. The sound of boots echoed in the hallway. Ava stepped forward and looked Jessica in the eyes one last time. You didn't disappear, Jessica. You just let your pain become your compass. I hope you find a new one. Moments later, Ren was taken into custody. Jessica didn't resist. Later that night, Ava and Julian stood outside the storage facility, exhausted and silent beneath the stars. I don't know what happens next, she admitted, voice soft. Julian looked at her. I don't either, but I don't want to go back, not to who I was, not to how I handled things. If you'll let me, I want to start over. Ava watched him for a long moment. Then she said, Start over doesn't mean forget. It means we carry it, together. And for the first time, Julian smiled, not with charm or confidence, but with something fragile and real. Hope. 2 weeks had passed, 2 long, quiet weeks. Ava stood barefoot in her apartment, the same 4 walls that had once felt like a prison of memories and pain. Now they felt different, not perfect, but hers. The sunlight painted golden stripes across the hardwood floors. The scent of fresh coffee filled the room, and somewhere in the background, music played softly, a playlist she hadn't touched since before the night everything fell apart. She walked to the window and opened it, letting the breeze in. It was cooler today, calmer, like the world had finally taken a deep breath. Ava closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm still here. Not broken, not erased. Still her." The headlines had come like a flood. Tech CEO Julian Maddox steps down amid scandal. Surveillance conspiracy shocks city. Billionaire targeted. Woman caught in crossfire speaks her truth. The world devoured the story for a week. There were theories, memes, outrage, sympathy. But Ava stayed quiet. She didn't need to defend herself. She'd already survived the worst of it. The betrayal, the isolation, the fear of being watched, used, forgotten. Now she just wanted peace. She met with the police, told them everything, how it started, how it spiraled, who Ren was, what Jessica had done, what she'd been through. Her statement was calm, detailed, clear. The detectives were impressed. One of them, a woman about Ava's age, squeezed her hand afterward and said, "You're not just a witness, you're a survivor." Ava didn't correct her. Ava didn't. Because maybe for the first time in her life, that word finally felt like truth. Jessica didn't run. She accepted her role in everything, the planning, the surveillance, the manipulation. What shocked Ava most, though, wasn't the plea deal or the apology. It was the guilt. At their final, court-mandated meeting, Jessica's hands trembled when she spoke. "I thought hurting him would heal me," she said. "But hurting you? That was never part of the plan. That was just what happens when you let your pain lead." Ava stared at her across the sterile room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "Oh, you could have stopped," she said. "At any point," Jessica nodded. "I know." And when they parted, Ava didn't forgive her, but she didn't carry her with her either. She let Jessica stay in the past where she belonged. Ren Marlowe wasn't offered mercy. The evidence was overwhelming: stalking, trespassing, illegal surveillance, tampering with devices, dozens of violations. His trial was swift, his sentence even swifter, but even locked away his shadow lingered, not in fear, but as a reminder of how close Ava had come to losing herself in someone else's obsession, and how much power she had reclaimed by walking away. As for Julian Maddox, he kept his word. He stepped down as CEO, turned down media interviews, and withdrew from public life. No press conferences, no self-defense, just silence. But not out of guilt, out of accountability. He didn't try to justify what happened with Jessica. He didn't blame Ava for pulling away. And most of all, he didn't chase her. He let her be, let her decide if their story had anything left to write. One afternoon, a letter arrived in Ava's mailbox. No return address, but she knew the handwriting, Julian's. "I used to think love was about saving someone, about being the anchor when they couldn't hold on. But you showed me that real love doesn't rescue, it respects, it doesn't fix, it walks beside. If you ever want peace instead of pressure, truth instead of perfection, coffee instead of questions, I'll be waiting." Where we first began, like, not the rooftop, not the office, but the moment you looked at me, and I knew I had to become someone worthy of being loved by you. There was no signature, just a small pressed flower between the pages, soft pink, delicate, a single memory. Ava sat with the letter in her lap for a long time. She didn't cry, she didn't smile, she just breathed deeply, freely. That weekend, she packed a small bag and took a short trip, alone, to the coast, a place she'd once dreamed of visiting with Ethan. Now she reclaimed it. She walked the shore with bare feet, journal in hand, writing down every fear she'd buried and every truth she finally owned. I am not who they left behind. I am who I became after they did. I am not a victim of someone else's damage. I am the author of what comes next." And when she returned home, she hung a small frame near her bed. Inside it was a note she wrote to herself. "You are not the abandoned bride. You are the woman who stood back up." A few days later, she walked past a little cafe tucked between the bookstore and the flower shop, a familiar one. She hesitated at the door, then pushed it open. Inside, the same barista smiled. "It's been a while." Ava returned the smile, slower this time. "Yeah, I think I'm ready for something simple." She sat by the window, ordered her usual. No chaos, no whispers, just a book, a warm drink, and the hum of quiet life moving forward. And as she turned a page, she looked out at the street. She didn't expect to see anyone, but there he was, Julian, not in a suit, not with security, just himself, carrying a notebook. Approaching slowly, he paused outside the window, didn't wave, didn't intrude, just waited. She looked at the empty chair across from her. Then, softly, she nodded. Julian walked in. They didn't talk about the past, not right away. They talked about books, weather, music, small things, human things. Human. And when the barista brought over 2 cups, Ava took hers and looked at Julian for a long moment. He waited respectfully. "I'm not promising anything," she said. Julian nodded. "I'm not asking for anything." Ava hesitated, then smiled gently. "But if I were ready, would you still be here?" Julian's voice was quiet, steady, always. And in that space, where no one tried to save anyone else, something new began. Not a fairy tale, but maybe something better, real, the end. Now it's your turn. Have you ever rebuilt yourself after someone else broke your heart? What helped you find your way back to you? Drop your story in the comments. Someone out there might need it more than you think. And if this story touched your heart in any way, leave a like, subscribe for more stories like this, and rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. I'd love to know how it made you feel. You matter. Your voice matters. And your presence here means more than you know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.